us have heard. Many of us have heard this story of doubting Thomas for years. We have heard the story of the disciples sitting in a room, hearing the good news, and Thomas not being there. And then he doesn't believe until he puts his hands into the wounds, until he sees the Jesus he saw die in the flesh, in person. But he still had the hope, to hope that Jesus would be there. What we often don't think about is that this Thomas, this group of disciples, did not know that Jesus was coming back. They were experiencing this in real time, without the foreknowledge we have that today, oh, it's just the resurrection story, no big deal. No, they didn't know. They thought their friend and confidant was dead, gone. They thought that a part of their life was over, and there was not a clear next. They were likely meeting for a farewell meal, a potluck, if you will, for, well, this is the end. This group of disciples, likely more than the 12 that we often think of, had to stop. They experienced what so many of us have: the loss, the feeling like the world was over and it needed to stop, and then watching it just keep spinning. For me, that means people keep driving, they keep walking, they keep working. Even when we are feeling the deepest of grief, the world doesn't pause. We might get a few days of grievance pay if we're lucky, and if we're working at a place that offers this, maybe a nice card and a hug from those around us, and then we're just expected to live with the grief. We don't know what to do 3 days after the loss of those we love dearly, but it appears that we're supposed to. This is the mindset that we find the apostles in this Easter season morning. They are lost. They are grieving. They don't know what to do, except maybe the next right thing. They are, well, frozen. And then this moment occurs. Jesus comes back. The women tried to tell them, but they paused and didn't believe them. So in this moment, they were surprised, astonished, asking themselves, and Jesus himself, wait, you're back? They're shocked. None of us, except maybe Mary and Martha, know what it's like to have someone die in front of you and then return a few days later. Jesus' whole body, his humanity, had returned to the disciples. They were ready to be resurrection people. They had experienced the resurrected Christ. They saw him. But Thomas didn't. Thomas wasn't with the group. We don't know this until he's introduced in the next section, but he's not present. He's doing something else. I like to think he's grieving like I catch myself grieving, trying to provide things for other people. He's out at whatever the equivalent to the first century CE Kroger is, looking at food he can't imagine being able to eat, but knowing his friends need to eat. He's distracting himself. But everyone else is over there, becoming resurrection people, seeing the risen Christ. But he's out trying to find a way to care for those people that he loves that lost a really good friend. He comes back, and he is astonished by what people are saying. Thomas thinks they might have been grieving and partaking of things a little too much for grieving. So he does what any rational human being would do. He asks for proof. We give Thomas a whole lot of grief for doing what a lot of us would do. Someone says, oh, we're engaged, and we say, oh, let me see your ring. Someone has a baby, we ask for their name. These are not the same burden of proof that Thomas is looking for, but they're common ways we ask for someone to show us their actuality. Thomas is asking for tangible proof of the resurrection. He's asking to put his hand in Jesus' side, in his wounds. Thomas is not accepting in word only. Thomas needs evidence. We call Thomas doubting Thomas all the time. But if we look closely at these verses, the New Interpreter's Bible Commentary points out the word doubt is nowhere to be found. We see a friend mourning the loss of a leader, asking for physical proof. We see hope in his words, in his eyes, not the explicit doubt he often gets pinned with. And maybe this hope is what it means for us to be a resurrection people. This almost but not yet that Thomas experiences. This is Thomas's introduction into being a resurrection person, this hope. Thomas gets his ask fulfilled in the meeting of the risen Christ, but it is in the hope of it that being a true resurrection person begins. Even as doubt feels like a tidal wave, this hope is the small whisper that comes to each of us as we love Christ. Thomas got the proof that a lot of us crave. That same Bible commentary says that it is not touching Jesus that leads Thomas to this confession of faith, but Jesus' gracious offer of himself. It wasn't Thomas who did anything. It was Jesus who met Thomas where he was. Jesus is glad when people believe who don't see. But Jesus didn't leave Thomas, just wait until he got it without his support. Jesus revealed himself to Thomas, wounds and all. Thomas just had to have the courage to ask. Jesus meets us where we need him too. We get to be the resurrection people, even with our doubts. Jesus doesn't just say, well, that stinks, they don't get to be my people. Jesus draws the table wider. Jesus, through the Holy Spirit, finds us in that glimpse of hope amongst the mourning. The Holy Spirit finds us when we're discouraged and don't know what's next, reminding us to keep looking for the hope. This hope is what we can learn from Thomas. Being a resurrection person doesn't mean we have it all figured out. Absolutely not. Being a resurrection person means we can have hope for today, for tomorrow, and for what is to come. Let's be resurrection people today and always.